And we're live, streaming from the footsteps of New York City. We are Music Matters with Jason Tramm, and thank you so much for joining us for our unique podcast community where we explore the issues and challenges of the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues. I started this show just as I missed the conversations with my friends. I missed I'm a conductor, music director, I'm a university professor, and most recently a podcast host. And I desperately missed talking to artists about the work and their art. And this show has given me a chance to reach across the genres of music, from classical to rock to indie and everything in between. So we're most excited that you can join us today. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on our up-and guests and topics. And like and share our videos, help us grow this community. And remember to ask questions in the chat box. We'll ask those questions to our artists, and we love it when our audience joins in the conversation. So thank you for joining us here at Music Matters. We have a wonderful guest today. We have Miss Eline Chavez, who is the lead singer and the songwriter for Onism E, a indie rock band doing great things and currently rehearsing in San Antonio, Texas. So we're delighted that you can join us. Welcome, Eline.
Hello.
So tell us what's going on in band rehearsal today.
We're all on the no longer in our 20s phase, and so there's a lot of stretching that happens. Occasionally, the drummer does some dancing for us to make sure we stay awake. There's a lot of additional beverages.
So you've just finished rehearsal recently, and you're going back in the studio after you're done?
We're smack in the middle of rehearsal. So we got going at about 3 o'clock. What is it? Central Standard Time. And so yeah, we have some shows coming up. So we're trying to live stream shows. So we're trying to get ready for that.
Okay, live stream shows are wonderful. It's great to see artists working and bands doing good work. So tell us, how long has Onism E been around, and what's it been like launching this new and exciting band?
Well, it's been interesting launching this new and exciting band. But this particular setup of I have a bass player, a guitar player, and a drummer, and we have been together since basically January of 2020, so right before COVID. We're pretty new. We're pretty new, even though Onism the band has been around for a little while, because originally Onism E the band was just me. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was your project to start with, and the band kind of formed organically. Tell us how that started. How'd you meet the guys who were in the band, and how did it gel?
Well, I put out a full-length album and then an EP. Full-length album in 2017, and then an EP out in 2018, I think. And then in 2019, I was like, I gotta travel. I gotta tour behind this music because people seem to like it. So I gotta get on the ball. And so come end of 2019, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna put myself out there to see what shows we could book. And we got into some shows, some off South by Southwest shows in Austin, which, anybody who's music oriented knows South by Southwest. It's a big music festival. So I was like, I'm going to get us in there. So we had 3 different shows lined up. And then
congratulations.
And then COVID hit. And so we had a hotel, we had everything going. We were ready to roll. We were ready to rock and roll. And as it came out, it just wasn't meant to be. So I wound up getting with my bass player, Chris Rodriguez, and I was like, hey, if I send you a track, will you do a new bass line for me?
Lay it down.
And he's like, yeah, sure. So right after that, I just basically decided I'm going to take down all the music. I'm going to take down all the music that I had up, and we're going to rework everything and see what happens. So that's what happened. And now
I've heard a lot of your stuff on YouTube and also Spotify. So some of your songs have been getting a lot of attention and really been getting out there to the public. And were those recorded in the studio before COVID, or were those recorded during COVID?
Love You More and In the Shadows were recorded actually in Helotes, Texas, and with the 2 Chris's. So if I say Chris's, it's Chris Vargas and Chris Rodriguez, with the Chris's and a different drummer. Those were recorded actually live. We basically took a weekend and did those before COVID at the end of 2019. And then the rest of the album, like I said, I had pulled all the music down that I had up that was just me, where I literally would sit in the studio and play the drums, play the bass, play the guitar, play all that stuff. And then I was like, it didn't sound as cool live because it didn't have that real organic feel of an actual bass player, an actual guitar player. So when I pulled all that stuff down and we started working the rest of the album virtually because COVID was around and we couldn't get together. So yeah, so we 2 songs in the studio and then the rest were done virtually, basically.
It's amazing the amount of virtual music that people have put out there, and that's really been a lifesaver for all of the artists, from classical to rock and everything in between, right? That's really been a lifesaver for us all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kept me from going crazy. I don't know about you.
Well, as a conductor, I have an orchestra and 2 choirs in my college, and then I have 2 other choirs on the outside where I conduct them all via Zoom, and we do virtual projects. But let me tell you, I'm ready to get real people in front of me again.
Yes, I will say I agree with you there. Like it served a wonderful purpose. It made us think outside the box. It made us learn to feed off the music without people being in front of us, right? But at the same time, it really made it very apparent like how much we feed off of each other, because now we're able to play live together. We socially distance during practice and we wear masks and stuff because only one of us has been able to get the vaccine so far, and so we're real careful about that. But it's so much nicer playing live with each other than it is playing virtually. So
Yeah, it's not the same as feeling the excitement of a crowd. We feel that. We feed off that as performing artists, and we don't get that from a Zoom screen or a laptop screen. It's not quite the same experience.
Exactly. Yeah, not the same, but you know, like I said, it served its purpose. It definitely taught me a lot as a mixer and as an engineer on that end. But definitely not as cool as playing live. So yeah.
So tell me, where does the name Onism E come from? I did my research on Onism, and tell me if I'm right on this, that Onim is the fear of only being able to inhabit one body at one time?
Yeah, or being in one place at one time. And that really speaks to me as a person. Like if you research anything about me, you know I'm not from San Antonio. I've lived in San Antonio. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in Austin. I spent a little time in Boston. I spent a little time in New York. New York I consider home. I've spent some time in California. That's where I'm from. I've spent some time in Georgia. I had a band out there. I'm just not known to stay still, because there's so much to see, you know, and I want to see it all if I can.
I'm the same. I get to travel when I conduct. I've conducted in like 7 different countries, and I love to experience new cultures and to meet new colleagues, and that's part of the joy of being a musician, is you get those opportunities.
Yeah, I got to go to France for the Women's World Cup, and I played a couple shows out there, and
cool.
So yeah, that was probably the thrill of my life so far. I love soccer. If anybody knows anything about me, I love the soccer. So
who's your favorite team?
Who's my favorite team? I love our women's national team. That's who I usually travel around for. But I'm a Portland Thorns women's national, or women's, the women's Major League Soccer. That's the team I go to. But yeah, my favorite soccer player is Tobin Heath. So I have probably way too many jerseys of Tobin Heath. I got one of Carly Lloyd, just because, you know, Carly Lloyd, she's gonna be a legend at some point. But yeah, I have some Christian Press there. I think she's gonna do good things for the women's soccer team. So Christian Press and Toby Heath.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, our team does well this year, and you know, I don't think Major League Soccer gets enough credit in this country. I think it's really important that that there's more attention given to it.
Absolutely, I'm all about supporting the women and the women's national team. So, you know, if I can support my jersey on stage, I totally will.
Awesome. So tell us about you as an artist. Did you always know you wanted to work in the arts, and do you come from a musical family?
No, I didn't always know that I was going to do this. This happened by accident, because my mom is a singer-songwriter as well. And my older brother loves music. And so when I think he was a teenager in teenager. I wasn't quite a teenager yet. He was a teenager in high school. He wanted to go see Melissa Etheridge in concert. And so my mom got him tickets to go see the concert. But he had bought himself some tickets to go see the concert. And so we wound up with 2 pairs of tickets to go see this concert. And my mom was like, well, do you want to go? And I'm like, I don't remember. I think it might have been 11, 10. I don't know. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go. And so we went, and she played at this amazing show at the Majestic Theater here in San Antonio. I was completely blown away. And I walked outside, and I was like, I want to learn how to play guitar. And that's how it started. I was like, I want to do what she did. And all of her topics were really, really adult. And I didn't know what any of the lyrics meant, but the music, the fire, the passion, the thunderous booming of music, I walked out of there, I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's what I want to do.
Doesn't get any more exciting than that, right? That first experience, that mountaintop experience at a young age, and you kind of find your direction. And so how did you follow that direction? You picked up the guitar, and did you always sing?
No, I really didn't sing until later. I started singing probably maybe high school, and I wasn't. And I don't think anybody from high school realized that I sang. Let's put it that way. It wasn't until I got to college that I was a late bloomer because I was really, really shy. And I really didn't let anybody know that I played guitar. I really didn't let anybody know that I sang. And I didn't let anybody know that I wrote. It wasn't until I was in college that I actually got out there and started doing things.
Wow. So you weren't in the choir program, or you didn't do the plays or any of those things where a lot of the musicians start. So you kind of kept it all inside, and then it kind of exploded when you got to college, huh?
Yeah, I was a softball player, and I was a behind-the-scenes theater person. I was a production stage manager.
Those are really important people. I work in opera. Those people are the unheralded heroes of every production.
Yeah, I was in the weeds, if you will. I wasn't in the front. I was too shy for any of that, so I stayed away.
I was always on the stage as a kid, and when I got to college, I had to take backstage as part of my credits. I learned so much about, oh my God, that really I was terrible at it, but it gave me an incredible appreciation for what these people do, who I work with all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I learned a lot. Again, everything's been a learning experience to get me to where I'm at now. That's kind of how I view it. So.
Well, that's one of those windows you look into, and that's kind of, as you grow as an artist and a person, you have all that to draw from. So in college, what changed? How did you go from being kind of shy and behind the scenes to being a professional rock artist?
I don't know. I hit an open mic in Los Angeles. I was out there at the time, hit an open mic, and I sang a song, and I effed it all up. Probably dropped the F-bomb while I was singing. But I walked away, and somebody told me, you got a really great voice. Like, if you could finish the song, you might be pretty good. So I was like, okay. Yeah, all right, I'll try that. And
you do have a unique mezzo kind of low voice quality that really is different than when I first heard you. I'm like, well, that's a striking instrument. It really speaks, really has something to say.
Yeah, I've been told that it's deeper. It's not your typical. I always take it as a compliment because I've been told multiple times, like, you don't sing like a girl. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Well, you sing like yourself, and same as an opera. Like the voice, the quality of the sound of the voice is like the instrument you are. If you're a cello or a trumpet or and that's really important in rock and roll because you have to establish a unique sound, right? That's so important.
Yeah, and it's funny because people don't realize that I have a decent falsetto, and I've actually hit that a couple of times in some songs, but it's just like I let things out of my secret pocket every now and then.
That means you have to always be exploring and innovating yourself in advance and trying new things and exploring new avenues and bringing that to your songwriting. So when did you write your first song? And do you remember what the lyrics are about?
I was probably a teenager. It's probably about the fact that somebody had taken my cookies because I was kind of I liked to eat when I was little, so I'm not gonna lie. And it's funny because I lost my train of thought during that last question. I'm not gonna lie, because the fellas were over here distracting me, laughing. They were laughing so loud, and I was like, "You guys are ridiculous! I'm trying to do an interview, and you guys are talking."
We'll get them on next. We'll get them on here. I want to meet them too. They sound like a lot of fun.
Put the flashlight on them. Ask them all the tough questions. Like,
definitely. But so when you wrote your first song, and when did you perform a song you wrote in front of an audience for the first time? And what was it like to get up there and share something that intimate, as a piece that you write with a group of people you don't know?
I probably have like a really bad case of memory blackout until I hit my mid-20s, and I went out just kind of on a whim to help my sister out, and she was living in a little itty-bitty town called Perry, Georgia, and my niece was just a little bitty itty-bitty baby, and she needed some help, and so I went out there, and I kind of told myself, I really need to follow this music thing. I need to do it. And so I went to this music store, and there was a flyer on the wall. This is back before the interwebs, right? And so there was a flyer on the wall, and it said that they were looking for a vocalist lead person. So I took the tab off of it, and I called them, and I was like, hey, I'd like to audition. And I didn't know what I was auditioning for. It could have been a bunch of crazy dudes, right? And so I showed up, and they were awful. But
as they often can be, right?
But they had the guitar, the bass player, and the drummer were solid, and so I left. And even though they called me like that night, and they were like, "Hey, we want to have you in the band," and I was like, I guess maybe it speaks to my overall sense of where I was at. And I said, I think you're good, because I was talking to the bass player, and I think the drummer's good. I don't think the rest of the band has anything to offer. So if you guys want to join me, I'm all for it, right? And so they were like, oh. And I'm sure they thought, what a witch, right? But then they called me like a little bit later, and they're like, okay. And so my first like band memory is we did an open mic at a place called Eddie's Attic in Decatur, Georgia, which is a huge acoustic thing. Like Brandy Carlisle's played it there. And that night they did this open mic shootout. And it was like you play your best two songs, and then people vote, and then somebody goes through the end, right?
Old school battle of the band sounds like. Very cool.
Yes, it was. It was a very tiny, intimate venue, and the venue was amazing. It's still like known for pushing out amazing artists. Anyway, long story short, because I'm talking rambling now. But anyway, we wound up getting to the next round, and then the next round, our head-to-head battle was against this band called Lo-Fi Masters. And if you've ever heard that, or if it triggers anything for you, it's because Lo-Fi Masters was the first, like, I guess the band that really got John Mayer on the map.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Whoa.
So
he's done okay for himself.
He's done all right. I've run across him a couple of times since then. And so we went up head to head against him. Of course, we lost, because at the time I was still like trying to find my bearings, and he was already whiz kid extraordinaire. And so we lost to John Mayer. That's my claim to fame.
Hey, listen, that's a great. We have a lot of young people listen to the show, and it's a great, like, who are aspiring artists, and that's a great that not everyone gets there immediately. It takes time. Every artistic path is unique and kind of winds in its own directions.
Yeah, I've been all over the place. I've run across some interesting people, and I think, and sometimes I'm like, okay, when is it my turn? And then I remember, like, I'm doing all right. So I kind of reset and think in terms of, like, it is what it is, and as long as I love what I'm doing, then I'm just gonna keep going until I get tired. Once I get tired, I'll stop.
Well, keep on running, and the music kind of recharges you. I know it does for me. I feel like even though things are challenging right now, like teaching and making music, I get to do both. I get to guest conduct, and it always recharges me. Getting in front of musicians, making an audience feel good, hearing people respond to the pieces I work on. What's it like when you hear someone react to songs? Like you have a pretty big presence on YouTube. What's it like getting reaction to your songs?
It's always humbling for me, because I put things out, and I hope that it resonates with with somebody, and either like makes them feel okay about where they're at, or pulls them off a ledge, or makes them find a different perspective on whatever they're viewing at that time. And so it's always interesting to me when I get little tidbits of like, hey, this is the song I listened to for the last week, just so I would I could keep going, because it reminded me I wasn't by myself. And so I think that's where like kind of coincides with that. Like I think I'll stop playing when I no longer have anything to say that makes any difference to anybody.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because in this time, everyone is under such challenges, and music and art, and like television and art, but music in particular is certainly a way that many people deal with the negative feelings they feel every day. Put something on there that touches our soul and brings us closer to our creativity. I think it's so important what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I like I said, I mean, for me, a job well done is when I know that somebody comes off that ledge and stops feeling alone. And I know that I know personally from a couple of the songs that I've written that a couple have actually reached out to me and said, yeah, that really reminded me that everybody is in a shitty place right now, and everybody
certainly are.
Everybody's gone through some crap, and we just got to keep our heads up and keep going.
Sage advice. We got a question from the Peanut Gallery, from the audience here. Jim from Georgia. We were just talking about Georgia.
Nice.
Jim asks, where does the E in Onism E come from?
It's the first initial for my name. So I was looking at bands, and there was already a band that was Onism, and I was like, well, E, done. Problem solved.
I did the same thing with Music Matters. There's about 1,000 Music Matters everywhere because it's alliteration and it's very obvious. And I said, Music Matters, well, what else? My name.
Exactly.
There you go.
So I didn't want anybody to have pronunciation issues like, is it Eline? What is it? I'm like, just E. Problem solved.
Very nice. And so what's next for you guys? Now, I know you're working on a couple live streams, but are there any plans for live performances? Have those started to come about? And what's the planning process for the return to the stage and live music making?
The planning process is making sure that Chris, our guitar player, doesn't mess things up. That's as far as we've gotten. No, just kidding. No, we have a couple of live streams coming up that we're going to do with some studios here in San Antonio. So as soon as I get those, I'll post those to our website and to our socials so people can chime in and give us money. No. So they can chime in and just listen. I don't care. Money's nice, though, but half the time I donate it to someone. And then hopefully, we're hoping to get back out there towards the end of the year, and more people have gotten vaccinated. It's safer to play out in venues, My big thing is making sure my guys stay safe and I stay safe, because we all have older parents, and this stuff is no joke. And I've lost a couple of friends to it, and I have friends that are battling through like weird side effects like fevers.
The side effects last so much longer than we ever expected. I have friends who for months were struggling with breath issues and like out of breath walking up the stairs, and young healthy people. Like I'm 45. But I have people who are really struggling with this who are younger, too. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've got a friend who's 32, and she has had a fever every day since. She no longer has COVID, but has had a fever every single day since October. So, as much as I want to get out there and get out into venues and to see people and to play, for me, my priority is making sure we all stay healthy so that we can do it long term and really play some rockin' shows sometimes toward the end of the year.
So how many shows did the current lineup play before everything went down and we went virtual and 0? Oh boy.
The big zero. Yeah. So if we suck, it's all Chris Vargas' fault.
Well, we're gonna meet Chris soon, I'm sure. I'd love to get him up there and talk about that. So I was going to ask you how do things change from? I always find that with bands, I love to ask how the performing process changes songs before they go into the studio. But I guess we have to ask you in reverse. Do songs change once you've recorded them in the studio and then you bring them on the stage in your experience?
Yeah, because it's especially with this particular release that we did, it's very calculated, right? I went in there, cut the drum track, and then I asked Chris for his bass line, and from there we built the layers. So there's multiple guitar parts, and there's sound effects, and there are different effects that we got out of guitar parts themselves and out of the bass line, because Chris is real dynamic bass player. And so to go from that to live, it's a circus, really.
It's going to be a wild experiment, right?
Yeah. And like we're going through it right now because we're trying to figure out like, okay, well, how do we fill that gap? How do we fill that gap? And I basically just finally told Lefty, like, just fill the gaps, and the rest will, the song itself carries itself, right? So the rest is just icing on the cake, if you will.
Very cool. So how do you go about writing, your process for writing songs? Do the lyrics come first? Do the music come first? What's your personal process?
It varies. It varies because I'm very much driven by the groove. So if I have a really solid bass line and drummer, a drummer could spark a song. And so a lot of times I'll go into the studio, play a drum piece that I like, I'll record it, and from there build the rest, build the guitar track, the vocal. Sometimes the lyrics hit me in my sleep. Sometimes they hit me in the shower. My America totally came from watching way too much TV, and I finally had to pull myself away from the television to find some sanity. So
I think we've all asked those questions about what is My America and what does that mean to us today. And to describe that song as one of the songs that's gotten a lot of attention lately. And tell us about how you came up with the lyrics, how you came up with that, and tell us what it means to you.
That's probably was one of the easiest songs to write. It like came to me in about 5 minutes. It's my 5-minute song, where I was watching some ridiculously overcharged newscast, and there was a picture that they posted, and it's of a little kid, and he's on his dad's shoulders. And at the time, I think everybody had seen that picture, and I don't know if you have, but it's a little boy, and he's got a Superman costume on, and he's sitting on his dad's shoulders, and he's got his snacks in one hand. And what you see, the picture makes it look like is like all these cops are pointing guns at him. And they weren't pointing guns at them as it came out, but that's what the picture looked like.
It definitely implied that. I've seen that picture, and I know what you're talking about.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And so I immediately was like, what the, every expletive that you can imagine came out of my mouth at that point. And then I found out the truth about the story. And even though I found out the truth about the story and that they weren't necessarily pointing at him, they were still pointing around him. And I sat down in my room, and I just, it just kind of all came out. And my dad is a Vietnam veteran, and my mom is an immigrant. And so she came from Jalisco when she was 16, and she didn't speak a lot of English. And so I put those two together and their stories, and then the picture, and it just kind of, it was like 5 minutes, and I was done. I was like, okay, this is this. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this, but I'm gonna do something with this, and then that's how that kind of happened.
Has social justice and the importance of that always been a part of your songwriting kind of thoughts?
I don't know. No, not necessarily. Like, it's always been about people and trying to teach people to, not even teach, but to remind people to be kind to each other. I really came out of the woodworks because I had been in the production side of stuff, and touring with other people and playing for drums with other folks. I really came out of the woodworks when I met a young man in New York who was just having a lot of trouble. Like, he was homeless at the time. He'd been kicked out by his family because he was trans, and that's how Reach came about. It's trying to keep him off the ledge, trying to remind him that no matter how bad things were, that there was somebody that cared about his well-being, and that was actively invested in making sure that he saw another day. So, and not necessarily social justice as much as just personal, like,
Human
hey,
justice,
yeah,
human
human
understanding,
justice,
yeah.
just like, hey, it's you are who you are, and you deserve to be loved, and you deserve to be taken care of, and you deserve to have wonderful things, and don't forget that. But in My America came out very much from that, like, really, this is the best we could do.
I think we've all said that at one time or another this year.
Yeah, and knowing how much my mom struggled to get here, and how much she's done for my family, and knowing that my dad went to Vietnam and did what he had to do for his country. And then, my dad has never been like super supportive of my music, but when I did that song, he actually looked at me and he said, "I'm proud of you. That's a really good song. It's
Wow.
really, really good." So that
must have been an incredible, like an incredible moment for you.
Oh, I went home and I cried for hours. Because it's funny because the older he's gotten, the more he understands like why I do what I do, and like his favorite song is "Love You More," and I thought that was interesting.
I think that's my favorite too. I think "Love You More" really has a kind of an edge, a grittiness. I really enjoy that. The bass and the drums groove. Your voice kind of locks in there, and really it grabs me.
Well, appreciate it. Yeah, that's his favorite song, and I was like, really. But yeah, and then I showed him the video for My America, and he was like, "That was really good. I hope that does what you're hoping it does."
So let's talk about the video side of everything. A lot of my colleagues in the field have been saying, this not only we had to figure out technology, we become TV producers as well as musicians these days.
Yeah.
So what is how hard is it to make a video, and how do you guys make videos? Do you hire a production team and a film studio, and how do you do all that?
I have one guy, and he does amazing work. His name is Jim Mckay. He's from Austin, Texas.
Shout out Jim Mckay. That's wonderful.
He is a blessing, an unbelievable blessing to my life. I met him. That meeting just isn't a story of itself, because I met him because I hired these two guys to do this video for me, like I guess 4 years ago now, and they were all pomp and circumstance and like big cameras and and big spaces, and at the time I hadn't really done a video on my own. Like, other people had always been in charge, and this was my first in charge point. And so they brought in this big, everything was huge. And the best part of that whole video was this one interview that Jim Mckay did for me, where he got me to kind of talk about the song and about the video and the whole purpose and the reason behind it. And I totally fell in love with him. And so when I left, I was like, I need your information. And so ever since then, he's my go-to guy. He takes.
Isn't it amazing how the talent can transcend? Like, you don't need a lot. When I speak to indie bands, a lot of the bands do great video work, and they do it with a shoestring budget, but very talented people.
Yeah, Jim is amazing. He makes us all look like we know what we're doing, and that's huge because we're all a bunch of dorks. But yeah, and then he does it for us on a shoestring budget that we give him, and he's just amazing. Like I said, my life is forever changed because of that encounter. And he basically produced My America for me. He went out there and he got some footage, and I gave him some footage, and he put it all together for us and made it what it was. So he did the video for Survivors for us. Yeah, anything that's half decent looking from this band, and then some, because in my opinion, he's hands down one of the most talented people I know out there.
It's always great to find those collaborators who can help your art and kind of bring it to the next level, and build a team that's going to help you and help the band to get out there.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we would have been recognized as much as we have been had it not been for John. So forever indebted to him and his kindness.
So you've been your music has been getting out there. I see Spotify has got a fair number of 13.5 thousand monthly listeners, and a lot of views on a lot of the songs. What's it like to watch your music grow and watch it have an impact on the general world?
It's weird. It's weird because, like, if you know anything about me, my better half always says I'm the most extroverted introvert she's ever met. Because I'm naturally shy, naturally a recluse. COVID hasn't really done much to me because I don't leave the house a lot anyway. And so to get like the whole piece on My America that was done by Broadway World, I was like blown away. And then to get to win Best Indie Rock Act at Radio Wigwam, I was just like, what happened? Like, I'm just hanging out in my house, but okay, cool. You know?
Well, that's the reach of all these new platforms, is you can put your. I think indie bands are at a point now where, so many people are into the indie scene because, for forever music was like they would prepackage you a plastic artist that wasn't really who they were, but just kind of a plastic representation of who they might want to sell. But I think the indie scene's all about real people and getting to know real musicians and who the musicians are, what their stories are, what they're kind of who they are as people. I think that's a really important part that people are looking for, honesty.
Yeah, and it's funny because somebody was asking me, somebody asked me in an interview like not too long ago, like, what do you tell other up and coming artists? And I'm like, well, A, I'm still up and coming, number one, and two, there's room in here for everybody. If you have something to say, and you have decent production, put it out there. Just get it out there. Somebody's gonna find you. It's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I feel like I have been going 24/7 since the album dropped. Trying to make sure that people could find us, trying to make sure that SEO is right. It's like knowing your terminology, finding your people who are gonna plug you, finding people that support you. Everything from social medias to email to Spotify to making sure your artist profile looks good. I mean, so much stuff.
It's never ending, right?
So I tell indie artists, like, A, be prepared to work. B, be prepared to work. And C, be prepared to work. And if you can understand that, then you're fine. You will eventually find your niche and get some momentum and find people that actually want to know when you're going to be playing it. So.
I had a mentor of mine who was one of the big mentors of my career, who was a famous conductor. He was in his 70s. I was in my mid-20s, and I was his assistant conductor. And he said, if you can see yourself doing anything else, do that. And that was such sage wisdom, because you have to work your butt off, any career in the arts, and you have to really want it, and that has to be all you really want. And you have to give a lot of yourself to do anything worth doing.
Yeah. I always tell people, it's one of those things where if you want it bad enough, and somebody said, well, yeah, but people have like Justin Timberlake. I'm like, that kid's been working since he was 6, right?
Didn't happen by accident, yeah.
Yeah, that they're a special breed of people. I'm a late bloomer, so it makes sense to me that now people are starting to pay attention, but it took me a while to get going. And some people, if that's you, then cool. Understand, that's your platform. It took you a minute, and now you're going to take off. Now go. Work
so
your
take
ass
us
off.
to the day when you won that award. What was it like finding out that all of a sudden, after all this work, you're finally getting some recognition at that level?
And this happens. That's what happened. I've never I don't know. It's because there's so much negativity. When you finally get to that positive hit, it's like, really? Because people you're too old school. Your sound's too old school. You're too retro. You're too rock and roll. You're too this. You're too that. You sound like you're a band out of the 90s. Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna I'm not gonna listen to you. And so when good things happen, I'm just like, me?
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, okay.
Back to work.
Exactly.
That's what I say too. It's I always tell my students and myself, I live by, you're only as good as your next review.
Exactly.
You can't live on your past. You got to get it back out there. And you look at the great rock bands, and you see that the really great ones are always looking ahead. Even if their best album was years ago, they're always putting something. The most popular album was years ago. They're always trying something new out and going a different direction.
Yeah, I've already told the fellas, as soon as we can get into a studio where we feel comfortable and COVID's not a gigantic issue, I'm we're going to hit it, but we're going to hit it differently, because now we've got Raj, who's basically our permanent drummer now, and I want to get his vibe and his spiel and his 2 cents in artsiness, because he's actually got a bachelor's in music, and like he trained.
My son
drums.
is a drummer. Asked me. He told me to ask. He said, "Does he have a jazz background?"
Raj, I don't know. Raj, do you have a jazz background? What's your background? Jazz, country, he says.
He could hear it in playing in the style. He really liked his style. He mentioned it to me.
Yeah, like he's got a couple of pieces, and then I think most of the album I actually played the drums, and then Raj has got a couple of pieces in there. He can't see you back there, fool. You got to come around this way.
How you doing?
He says, "How you doing? How you doing?
How you doing?" I teach in Jersey, so.
Yeah, nice. We watch a lot of Friends. Does that count?
Yeah, good enough. Good enough.
Yeah. I actually just learned how to play drums by watching other drummers, and then when I couldn't find a drummer who wanted to play with me for very long, I finally just I can be Dave Grohl.
Want
and
something
play the
done? Do it yourself.
I do it myself. I'm not very good, but I'll try.
Who are the artists who most inspired you along your way? If you had to look back and pick your top 3 performing artists who were hugely in your kind of artistic DNA, who would they be?
Chrissy Hynde for Pretenders. Melissa Etheridge for sure for her songwriting. And you said top 3? Ben Harper.
Oh, okay.
Ben Harper. Man, that man has some soul. And then, him with the Innocent Criminals. Oh, you want to talk about a live show. I got a chance to watch him and the Criminals. And, again, blew the roof off the joint. And I was forever, so when people say, they hear the soul in the indie rock that we do, I'm like, that's the Ben Harper I'm trying to channel to bring that out. Because, man, that he can make me cry and want to revolutionize the world in one album,
That's very rock and roll, that revolution, and kind of want to change things up. And rock and roll has had that kind of role for since the beginning, since its roots, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
change and...
All of that, yeah. Even the Beatles, John Lennon. Think about that. And
they shook up everything, songwriting form. I mean, you name it, they were shaking it up.
Yeah, and then when I was living in Georgia and I had that band out there, it was the REM was the thing, and listening to REM and Radiohead and getting all that influence, and nowadays there's so many powerful women out there, Phoebe Bridgers and Sharon Van Etten and Jade Bird, and there's just so much good music out now, and I'm just glad.
I love to see the diversity that there's so many. Everyone's got that voice, and everyone from a different place has a different voice to bring, and it's exciting to see the great number of voices we're seeing and the different artists. And I've learned so much about the indie scene. There's so much good indie music being written and put out there.
Absolutely, so much good stuff. Like Amy Shark was indie, and now she's kind of gotten big. Ben Howard, the same thing, kind of gotten big. That's why I always tell people, there's room in there for you. All it takes is one song that somebody decides to add to their TikTok, and then next thing you know, you're the next big thing.
And back to work again, right?
And back to work. Exactly.
Well, I'm going to let you get back to work since you're in the middle of a band rehearsal, and really thank you for stopping and letting us explore your music and explore your work, and we look forward to the next chapter. Where can people find out more about Onism E and yourself, and how can they get in touch if they want to ask questions or reach out to you guys?
Well, we've got a website, so you can just go to onisme.com. So ONISM, there's Raj. Everybody else is camera shy, sorry. Oh, wait, I didn't even spell that right. I gotta stop drinking. ONISME.com. Onisme.com. You can find us. We're on Bandcamp. We're on all the things. And then Jason just said, we're on the YouTubes. We're on the interwebs. That's how Chris Rodriguez says everything. So, yeah, they're antisocial. Sorry I couldn't get them to come out here.
Well, you're the lead singer. We expect to have a lot to say, so...
Yeah, and they, I'm the prettiest one, so that's how that works too.
Can't beat it. Well, thank you so much for joining us and wishing you all the continued success as we come out of COVID and as we finish this period. Keep writing great songs, engage and inspire people and help people. And we can't wait to see what the next chapter for Onism E is going to look like.
Thank you. And thank you to your family. Look at that. Shameless marketing. Shameless marketing.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jason. We really appreciate you for picking up on us. And for spending the time
when
with
you
us
guys
today.
are back in the Northeast, I'm definitely going to be there. I'm not going to miss it.
All right, I will call you first. We will do drinks and get wasted
Awesome.
before the show, but not really because we're all old.
I'm 45, so it's fine with me.
We'll drink
All
some
the
water.
best.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Really means a lot to us. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. We have a show tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with famous violin soloist Kelly Hall Tompkins, who made quite a name for herself as the featured violinist on Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway. She has branched out into an exciting solo career in classical music and is just taking over the world. We're excited to have her here tomorrow, so please join us for Kelly Hall Tompkins. Thank you so much, and remember, keep music alive.